Hi, everyone. I'm Fiona Edgar. Welcome to the very first episode of the No BS Pagan podcast. I'm an astrologer, a polytheist, a writer from Northern Ireland, and this is my lovely co host, Tina Kemp. Tina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Tina. I think most of the people that will see this, or a good portion of it, will probably know of my YouTube channel already because they've watched Thomas's podcast. And what I do is I basically live my life normally, but it is infused with magic and magic practices that includes tarot runes and a constant awareness of the unseen that is around us. I would sum it up like that without getting into too much detail.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Pretty much like myself, then. So, how long have you been a practicing pagan for?
Oh, I would say for as long as I can remember. I was basically a pagan before I knew what a pagan was. I was raised that way. My grandmother was very Catholic, but at the same time, she had this belief in fairies and in magic and in tarot. She dragged me to tarot readers, palm readers, crystal ball gazers. Every year there was this convention about with these people, and she would take me there every time. Not my sister, not my mother, always me, because she knew I had an interest in it from a very young age, and it developed from there. And I never considered it. I never considered not to have it in my life. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
part of my life.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it went for me as well. I mean, obviously grew up in Northern Ireland, a very Christianized country. We had the Catholics and the Protestants, and I was raised in a Protestant home. But from a very young age, I did not believe in what I was hearing. I felt such a profound disrespect about this guy on the cross. I felt no connection to him whatsoever because they were talking about all of these places that I'd never been to. I didn't know anything about them. So it never stuck with me. I never wanted to go to church. And like yourself, I did feel, and I look back on it, and I was definitely pagan from a very young age. Um, I had quite supernatural experiences in my childhood. Did you ever have anything like that?
Oh, my very first paranormal experience that I can remember was a dream I had. Um, I woke up screaming very early in the morning, and I was in a panic. And my mother came into the room, and I was shouting and screaming at her. I was out of my mind with fear and sadness. And I said that somebody died at the train tracks. And then later that day, I can't remember if it was the same day or the exact same day after, that an old man walked over the tracks and committed suicide. And I think that was the time that my mother started to look at me a bit. She's weird. And there was a profound disconnect from me and my mother from that point on. But I did grow closer to my grandmother. A second one that was very powerful, and I will never forget it. I had an argument with my mother. We never had a good relationship. And I ran upstairs to my room. I walked into my room, and I suddenly remembered to myself, I need to slam the door shut. So I turned around, and my hand was already in the air, and I walked towards it 2 steps, and I walked into this wall of, yeah, an invisible wall, and the door slammed shut in front of me out of itself. And at the same time, this all happened at the same second. The door slammed shut. I walked into this invisible wall, and it pushed me back with such a force that I fell on my butt. And I remember sitting there going, what what just happened? I wasn't angry anymore, but that left a very deep impression on me. It didn't It scared me a little bit, because I tried to recreate it afterwards. Like, can I really get that angry again that something like that happened? But I couldn't bring myself to the threshold. And I think that was probably the universe telling me, or the gods, or don't go there.
Hmm.
The input is not worth the output.
Yeah, I mean, I have looked at your chart a little bit, and I saw that you have Mars in Scorpio, which I have personally coined it the Darth Vader placement, because the the people that have that, they're so powerful when it comes to their own energy. And I mean, I have Scorpio moon. I guess it would be similar that way. But I people like us have had experiences connected with the paranormal from very early childhoods. I had quite a lot. I mean, I remember seeing like a hooded figure standing at the end of my bed and just being really scared. And then my whole family would hear footsteps up and down our hall at night, and just like a lot of other weird stuff. But when you're a little girl in Christian Ireland, you can't talk about it. You can't, because people will just tell you that you're crazy. I was lucky that I have two older sisters, so they were quite open-minded. My oldest sister in particular, she introduced me to astrology and all kinds of stuff. So I remember talking to my sister, and I was like, I had this dream where I was floating on my ceiling, and then I came back into my body. I saw my body on the bed, and I woke up with a big jump, and she was like, "That's astral projection."
Yeah. Something like that never happened to me. People ask me that sometimes. Oh, do you ever have the lucid dreaming experiences or astral travel? And I just can't seem to do it. For whatever reason, I can't do it. And I tried all the tricks, and then they give you tips. Oh, you should try it this way or that way in a different position. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. I mean, probably you are doing it, but you're not remembering
Yeah.
because, yeah. I mean, I don't really, I do dream, but I don't really remember a lot of them. But people have said to me that they've seen me in their dreams and like, stuff like that. So I think probably you are doing it, but you're just not, remembering. Um, but the land that you live on, then tell us a little bit about that, because I know that you have a lot of megaliths and it seems to be very spiritual. Has that affected your intuition or your dreams?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I kind of blocked it out in Belgium, especially when I worked full time. I just didn't have the energy anymore to deal with and the spiritual side and my everyday life, because working in the kitchen, it's a 12-hour minimum. You just have other things to do, and I couldn't cope with both. So I completely blocked it out, but it won't be blocked out. But when I came here, that opened itself up again like a flower almost.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't it 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 didn't feel oppressive or I'm weirded out. I cannot deal with this. No, it was this gradual experience of, but this is fantastic. I want to know more, see more. And with every experience, it blooms into something. And especially the land here, it is so old. It has so much history. And those megaliths, nobody really knows how old they are. They say it, oh, but they're Etruscan necropolises. Yeah, but they all are Etruscan necropolises. It doesn't matter what they look like, even if there were no bodies found in there. It is a necropolis. It's laziness, I think. And it's just not true in some cases. Some of the places I've been to, I can tell this is not a necropolis. This was a temple.
Mm-hmm.
I posted some of those pictures on Instagram, especially the one in the forest. I could just tell this was not a city of the dead. This was a temple and people worshipped here. And it was a joyous thing because it was directed to the east, to the rising sun. And I got that impression this was once so much bigger than what is left of it. Like it was a city, but it's no longer there, just these ruins. It is so, I find it hard to explain because I get such emotions when I talk about it. It's almost like you can see people still there, and they are still there through the veil of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, have they tried to connect them with Christianity in any way over there, like they have done here?
Oh yes, crosses, they are carved in them, and it's like a blemish on those things. Like, what a
Oh,
arrogance. How dare you to claim this, or make it something less than what it was. I find it so disrespectful. And yeah, I have a lot of words that I would like to use, but it would all come down to the same thing anyway. You don't do that.
no,
You don't go to
no,
a church and paint a pentagram on it. Well, maybe some
exactly.
people do.
Well, not for a long time anyway.
You get arrested.
Yeah. Yeah, they've done that here. They've tried to connect all of our sacred sites to Christianity. St. Patrick might have visited here once. It's just like appalling and absurd. And it's really caused a very deep energetic disturbance on those sites. I mean, the lesser known ones, people haven't tried to make that connection or, name them something Christian, and not very many people go to those. The energy is very much alive within those. The ley lines are undisturbed. So, I mean, I think the whole plan for them to do that in the first place was to distort or break or shift the ley lines that run through the sacred sites, because the people that live on the land are energetically kind of fed by those currents of energy. But obviously, then when they connect them to Christianity and everything gets messed up, it messes up the people as well. It's disorientating.
Yeah, and it works both ways. I have the impression. So the energy in the land, it either feeds or disrupts the people that are living in it, and then that turmoil that those people feel gets sent back into those ley lines or those energy fields, and it culminates and it makes it worse. And I think that has a much graver spiritual effect than we are told about.
Mm-hmm.
Can sense that, but we're never told about that. I mean, I think it came up in one of Thomas' podcasts as well, that Christian churches were built on top of these older sites to accumulate the energy to make use of it. I believe that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
uh, it's a parasitic belief system, in my opinion. Abrahamism, all of them, some
Yes.
more than others.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%, which is why I thought it would be such a good idea for us to talk about this, because the way that I see it, it's a slave religion. So before Christianity came along, every group of people, they had their own gods. And that's the way that it was. It was always tribal. But then with Abrahamism, it was only about one God. So, first of all, that in itself is really unbalanced. The second thing is that their God requires submission, groveling. It doesn't matter what kind of shitty person you are, as long as you say sorry to this God and repent before you die. And of course, it doesn't work like that. And this has led us to live in societies full of very damaged people, full of ancestral trauma.
I completely believe, I know, not believe, I am convinced that the Vatican is a kingdom of sorcery. Excuse me. And their main energy source is money. And you can see that when you go there. It's very rich. They are incredibly rich. These people have been playing the same game for 2000 years.
Mm-hmm.
They're very good at what they do. They know what they're doing. Maybe not every priest is aware of that, but certainly the cardinals are. And the
Mm-hmm.
cardinal, where the Pope comes from, it's the Pope is elected from eventually. And where I live specifically, it used to be papal lands. Coincidentally, also the part of Italy that has the most megaliths, and where paganism was very, very common. It's really as if to say, this is our land now. It's over for you people. Either go away or adapt to us, or we will wipe you out. And they tried.
Yeah.
it doesn't work that way. You cannot wipe out paganism. It's the natural state of human spirituality. And you notice that here when you see this little Madonna shrines near the crossroads, you know that is a goddess. The
Mm-hmm.
little pagan saints, well, Catholic saints here and there, like the Lady of the Nesplet tree, the Lady of the Cherry tree. Those are minor pagan goddesses, all of
Yeah.
them. It's just a way to avoid being persecuted.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. And I think the way that I see the gods is that they are our original ancestors. And that's why the ancestral link has to be, so strong for them to actually like work for you. I mean, I did a disastrous mishmash of kind of new age stuff back in the day because I didn't really know any better. I knew that I wasn't Christian, and I was like, oh, look at these goddesses, aren't they beautiful and fantastic? But the ones that I was working with weren't really ancestral, so you can communicate with them, and all of that, but it's sort of like trying to talk to them through a wall of glass. So then when I found Odin and the Ausitri path, it was like, wow, this stuff is really powerful, So when did but your background is originally with the Celtic gods, isn't that right?
Oh, I wouldn't really say that because my grandmother never brought up gods. Never. I had to figure that out on my own. I had an interest in it, but it was more of a, let's call it an academical interest. I read about the Greek gods, the Greek myths, and also the Celtic myths. And when I read Celtic myths, I had this like, oh, but this is actually pretty cool. But there wasn't really a connection, even though I recognized it somewhere along the ancestral line, like, yeah, this sounds familiar somehow. It was only when I started to know and learn about runes and the Norse gods that this is it. I know this.
Hmm.
I already know this. I just need to be reminded a little bit. That's how it felt like. But
Yeah.
what you said about that the gods are ancestry, are our ancestors, far ancestors. This is especially noticeable in the Celtic god Cernunnos because it's holding a torque, and that was the symbol of leadership, which is passed on to others eventually.
Ah.
So it might be that this god is not always the same person,
Mm-hmm.
an archetype that is taken on by somebody and passed on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're all originally Indo-European gods. And I think when they reconstructed I think they call it Indo-European language, what they came up with was the original Sky Father. And he was, what did they name him? Was it Dias? I'm probably butchering this. I'm not very good with pronouncing things correctly, but Dias Pater. And he was like the original sky god. And of course, he has all of the other gods in Europe are like a form of that. It's a lot of the same qualities and traits. So I think that if you're a European, you can work with, to a certain extent, other European gods and goddesses, and you will get some benefit from that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's all very similar. It's the only differences that I have noticed in the whole European continent. I mean, differences, something I've noticed in general is that the gods are very relatable to the climate one lives in. So of course they don't have a god of snow and ice. Uh, that just doesn't exist in a place like Italy. Same as you really wouldn't have a god of wine and bacchanals in the Norse pantheon. Also because it would be very dangerous to get that stupidly drunk in the middle of winter. You will die of hypothermia.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think like this was really common knowledge to our ancestors. But because of Abrahamism, of course, we got to the New Age when people were, and I think it's just as damaging, sometimes even more so than Abrahamism. I have had so many bad experiences with New Agers. I went to workshops like a long time ago, and they were just dreadful. But of course, they always go on about the one God, the New Age, Abraham, which is the Abrahamic God. But they can't let themselves be pagans.
Because I truly believe that Abrahamism, the God of Abrahamism, is a demon.
Me too.
And of course, that demon does not want competition. It cannot stand it. That is the nature of demons. They lie, they deceive, they feed. And the hell with you as a worshiper. You don't matter. You're just food. And that is so true when I look at Abrahamism, like you don't matter. The only thing that matters is this, which is
Yeah.
also energy. Blood also, like the body mutilations in two specific Abrahamic religions. I find it very disturbing because that really wouldn't happen without Abrahamism. We wouldn't have this. Okay, yeah, we have tattoos and piercings, but those are augmentations. They are not mutilations. There's something added to the human body, a decoration. There is not something that is cut away from it. Yeah, I find this a deeply disturbing subject. It disturbs me. I don't have another word for it.
Yeah, I think that Abrahamism was a very powerful form of black magic to weaken people and turn them into slaves. And, the whole idea about it being a peaceful conversion was just utter horseshit. And it's something that I argue with people all the time. I mean, they've found evidence of that, but also they've covered a lot of evidence up. I mean, I think there was a report of, I think he was an Earl, I can't remember his name, but he was forced to swallow a snake because he wouldn't convert to Christianity. And of course, they used a lot of, the whole snake symbolism, symbolizing the pagans, but it absolutely was forced upon them. And our ancestors would have known the wisdom of venerating a part of yourself, which is what our gods are. When you venerate Odin, you're venerating everyone on your paternal line. If it's Frigga, it's your maternal line. And it kind of, what I've noticed is that it dissolves stuff like ancestral curses, ancestral wounds, the kind of thing that repeats over and over again. I mean, I think obviously they knew that. These people are magicians. So they knew that what we would get to eventually is what we are seeing now in the world.
It is literally in the Bible that I don't remember if it is God or Jesus that supposedly said that, but that anyone that venerates the mother or the father above me is not worthy of my something like that. I never read the Bible. I only read the quotes. I can't bring myself to read this thing. Only when it depends. I have never read it from front to back, but I will look at it when I need to find something. But then I put it away again because it just I feel an internal block having to talk about it because I don't want it near me, basically. When somebody tells me I will pray for you, it's like, yeah, please don't. I feel this is such a passive aggressive thing to say, first and for all, and it feels like you're cursing me.
Yeah, totally. And the thing is that what I've noticed is that Christians will beg and plead and pray, oh, please, God, help. Their God doesn't fucking listen. They get no response. Whereas if I ask Odin for something or Thor, I get a response immediately. Omens in nature, they literally get nothing.
No, you have to have faith that it will happen in the afterlife.
Such a good trick, isn't it? And of course, yeah, I mean, I have to give it to them. It was very smart. They knew that it wasn't going to happen in that generation, but then within a couple of generations, people would know, they just wouldn't even. But of course, Odin survives through all of that. He never went away because they were still doing tapestries with him on and paintings. you can't kill these gods because they're us. They're part of us.
And they're also, because they are so closely related to our natural environment, nature is cyclical. It's not dual. It comes back, things come back. Yes, they die, maybe they go underground or become, they go out of the realm of sight for a while, but eventually it always comes back. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes that is fast, but it always comes back. And that is something that you don't even have to believe or have faith in. You know this will happen. You know that the sun will come up. You know that after fall, after winter comes spring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just something about that cycle that no one will ever be able to end completely. So what kind of magic do you do then? You mentioned that, so you're a trained chef. So tell us about how you incorporate your magic into the food that you make. I find that really interesting.
Well, when I was working, I didn't. But now here, I have found that there is such an energy that can go into food that you can literally taste when you eat it. For instance, making your own bread, you really have to knead it and put a lot of energy into it, just the work of doing that. And I love cooking. I've always loved cooking, and that love was almost killed in culinary because of all the other bullshit that comes along with it, and it's a lot. But yeah, I rediscovered here how much I actually like cooking, the old school cooking. For instance, oh, I have a little bit of tomato peel or onion peel. I will not throw it away. I will make stock of that later. Small things like that. But I put it away with the intention of, this is going to be something tasty later. This is not just trash.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love that so much. And when I eat that food, I can tell that this is not just food for my stomach and for my body. It feels I eat it deliberately now. It's not just to stuff my mouth full so I won't feel hungry. It's an experience every time, and I like that. I just like that feeling, and I think because I like it is that it works.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you draw runes on your food, like when you make your bread then?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that I would do that sometimes too if I'm not too greedy and like eat it too quickly. But something that I do is I'm always really careful about what I'm thinking about when I'm stirring my food, and I make sure that like no one around me is talking about anything negative. But because of course that energy then is going to go into the food.
Yes, and that is why restaurant foods, even though you will always taste when it is restaurant food, and that is because that environment is so stressful all the time. You can somehow feel that when you, even if it is a very nice place, it's cozy looking, the waiter was very nice to you, you walk out of that restaurant and you immediately feel it like, oh, I'm tired, oh, I want to go to sleep.
That's very true. Very true.
Yeah, I don't have that feeling with home cooking, unless it has happened. But yeah, like you said, I have to be deliberate about it. I cannot just be, oof, I cannot be working with food when I'm in a really bad mood, because it will fail. I will burn things. You won't enjoy it.
Yeah.
There's no point to it then. It's a form of magic in itself, really.
Yeah, it absolutely is, because it's supposed to be nourishing for the soul as well as the body. You know, I could see with a separate YouTube channel doing like loads of witchy things with food. I bet you that would go down really well, or having people over to teach them how to incorporate magic into their everyday, you know, their breakfast and their dinner. I would definitely go to that. I think that would be fantastic.
Oh yeah, I could do a series on that. I think I made one video about it, but yeah, it was one in the many others. But yeah,
Oh,
that's a good idea. Huh.
food, magic, I mean, both good. It's fantastic, right? Both of those things separately. Let's combine them together.
Indeed. So if you have little time in your day, but you have to cook anyway, that is a great way to do it, or to start at least. And it will develop from there. You will grow spiritually, but you have to allow it.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot treat it as just another, like, oh, I'm only eating because I don't want to feel hungry. Because I know people like that, and it never ever works for them if they want.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to enjoy what you're doing.
Totally. And the other thing is that it's really important to eat appropriate food during certain astrology cycles. For example, like if there's an eclipse, the best thing to do is to eat really lightly, eat cleanly, or fast if your health can benefit from that. Because whatever you eat becomes very toxic within your body during an eclipse. This is something that I learned from a Vedic astrologer.
Oh, and I didn't know that. I will definitely keep that in mind next time. That would
Yeah,
be a good time to go on a fast then.
it would. And I personally love fasting. It's worked really well for me. Like I've healed from a lot of health issues from intermittent fasting and natural medicine. But I mean, if you look at an animal, the first thing that an animal will do when it's not feeling well is to fast.
Oh, that's
You know,
true.
my cat won't eat if he's not feeling well, but then he fasts for a day and then he recovers again because his body can get to work without the interference of having to digest food. And I think that's why it's so healing. I'm a big fan of it. But of course, being in like Western civilization, we use food as a cure for everything. You know, you're sad, eat ice cream, eat this, eat that. And people over here lose their shit if they can't eat for like 2 or 3 hours. I mean, it's insane.
That is a weird thing, I find. That doesn't sit well with me. This over the top reaction, almost to the point of hysteria, just because you cannot have a certain food when you want it. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, go try that in other parts of the world where food is scarce. They
Yeah.
will look at you if you are abnormal, and you are.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the runes then. I know that you have worked with the runes for a long time. For me, my first experience of runes came from my ex who had Germanic blood, and he was a pagan, you know, he was American, so kind of more less backwards than over here in Ireland, and he taught me a lot of stuff. And he had Thursdays tattooed on him, and he was actually a vet. He went to Iraq twice, and before he went in, he used to draw Thursdays like on his helmet or his forehead. And so I thought, oh, that's really cool, like typical new age. I'm going to get that. And the first time, now this was a very long time ago, so I got Thursdays tattooed on my back. And actually that night I had a really profound dream. And I dreamt that I was in a really small village. So it was like back in the day, back in Viking times or whatever. And all of the village was burning because people had come and they were setting it alight. So it seemed to kind of spark that um, something ancestral within me. The interesting thing is that when I grew up in Ireland, I was affected by the terrorism and I felt very unsafe in my own home. And that seemed to repeat for me. Like I got not burgled, but a lot of odd things happening to do with strangers coming into my home unexpectedly. And Ireland is a relatively safe country. We don't really have high crime rates if you're not in the cities. So this was totally abnormal. But after I had that dream and after I had Thursdays tattooed onto my back, I never had that again. It started to act as a shield.
It is it's called a thorn. So it's basically like yeah, spiritually surplanting yourself with brambles, thorn bushes. It is not actively hostile towards anybody, but anybody that comes in uninvited, yeah, well, you're going to get hurt. What I have noticed is that you have to be careful which runes you put on you, because personality wise it can have an adverse effect. Suppose you had not been fearful and instead you were a very aggressive person. This would have not been a good rune to put on you. This might have
Mhm.
very much exacerbated that personality trait. I
Yeah,
have
that's
to be
true.
careful with that because I am a naturally aggressive person. I am Mars in Scorpio. And
Uh-huh. Darth Vader.
yeah, I yeah, I mean, oh, I needed that in the kitchen, that energy because I mean, you either walk over corpses or you be the corpse that other people walk over. So yeah, that would have been a bad one to put on me. It would have made me unnecessarily hostile and aggressive to other people.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I have Mars in a very prominent place in my chart, so I know that I can be aggressive, but it's only when I'm attacked or I feel pushed into a corner because I'm actually quite, I have a strong personality, but I'm quite easy to get along with. But when I am pushed into the corner, I do become the animal with the claws and the thorn. The thorn comes out then, absolutely.
I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I mean, it, I find it in itself normal, especially for pagans. Not only is it normal for a human, because if we look at the animal world, every animal does that. An animal in itself is not aggressive. A predator, when it goes for the kill, it is not aggressive or hostile, it just wants to feed itself. But let's say a rat, we drive it into a corner. Most of the time it leaves us alone, but drive it into a corner and start to poke at it, you will see the aggression come out. Even though it's a small animal, it can still become rather dangerous. If they
Hmm.
bite, diseases get transferred. So yeah, animals are not naturally aggressive, and I think that is the same for people. We are not naturally aggressive, but push us enough, shove us around enough, we will become aggressive. And that is self-protection, and that is bred and taught out of us by Abrahamism. And I
Hmm.
think that is a very, very self-destructive and evil thing to make people believe.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole turn the other cheek thing is completely unnatural. If someone does you harm, you have every right to be fucking angry about it. But Abrahamism and the New Age will both say, oh, just let it go. And then you have no sense of justice. Of course, you should not be seething all the time. I mean, it's harder for people with Scorpio placements to let things go than it is anyone else because we will brood over that for a long time. But the whole let it go, turn the other cheek, forgive your enemies, love your enemies. Fuck no, that's so disempowering. I don't forgive anyone that's fucked me over. Absolutely not. I mean, I'm not going to sit and cry every night over it either. I just, I will cut them off. But there's no sense of justice anymore through Abrahamism. Even criminals get away with everything. Um, Back in the day, they would have pressed your face very slowly into a bog, watching your life force bubble away from you. I mean, well, I'm not going to talk about that anymore, but there's some people like pedophiles and all of that. There's no justice and they abuse kids. They get put in prison for a few years and then they're released again. I think that is the direct consequence of Abrahamism.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I say what I really believe should happen to these people, well, yeah, I could be in a tough position if my neighbor gets found out to be one and something happens.
Mm,
But yeah, it's I don't think these people have anything positive to contribute to humanity.
no,
But
me
they're dead.
neither. Yeah. When it comes to children and animals, there's no forgiveness in my heart whatsoever. I think yeah, probably we're both on the same page here. I'm sure we are because of our Scorpio placements. Another rune that I have worked with is algaes. And I mean, I've worked with them for quite a long time in a magical sense and in an energetic sense. but I never used them for divination when it came to other people. But something that I have done for a long time is I'll draw algae onto, say, my suitcase if I'm traveling. I also have made up a ritual that I use every night before I go to sleep. And it acts as a kind of electrical fence that keeps entities out. They can't get in. So in the air, I'll draw algae and I visualize it the color blue. In the similar idea as the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram that I did when I was in the OTO that wasn't very effective. So I draw algae and then I visualize pushing it back so it covers one corner of my home. Then I will do it with the other corners, and then I will draw them up with like a white line. So what I realized, and this came to me intuitively, like I don't know where it came from, but nothing can get in.
I have something similar that I do with that same room before I go out in the valley, because this is a creepy valley. Creepy in the sense that you can have experiences here and it can creep you out. I will put my fingers, these 3 fingers, in my fireplace on the ash that is still there and do that. It's kind of the same, but on the body, not the house. And that seems to help not get negative experiences down there. Seems to help a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I do still have experiences, but they're never of the sort of like, I need to get out of here, or something's gonna attach itself, or something, I'm gonna take something home with me. But this town has a lot of, I said it in one of my videos, a recent one, I think it's because there is no electromagnetic fog here. I mean, it's very, very, very few people live here. Very few of them even have a TV. So I think that has something to do with it, that you can really have the weirdest, strangest, out of the blue experiences here that never happened to me in Belgium at such a fast rate. But yeah, I mean, and they're small things. They're not major things like when I told you I fell on my ass, I bumped into a wall, nothing like that. But just seeing somebody walk by while I know I'm alone here. A person, just what? Of course,
Yeah.
nobody there.
I love that though. I like those kind of experiences, you know? Yeah, but you're right though. You get those more impure places where not very many people live. Where my parents live, they live beside a ferry fort, and there's like an ancient bog that's never been, excavated. No one's ever looked into it. And it's swallowed, I think, like a horse and a cow. So it was right beside the settlement. So there could be bog bodies in there, certainly like jewelry or whatever. But it's really, you can feel in the atmosphere, it's very powerful. And my dad will complain that, he'll be sitting watching TV and someone will tap him on his shoulder and they touch his hair. But the fairies are very active there, and nothing in my parents' property works. Their electrical gates don't work. Things just break all the time. The car breaks down constantly. And I'm like,
yeah. But those are relatively benign manifestations. It could be so much worse. Or a while back, I was feeling turmoil and I wasn't feeling in a good state. And I had things flying around this room, not in a poltergeist way, but something falls over there. And I'm sitting thinking here like, oh, what? And then at the same time, there falls something. My cat knocks something over, a door slams shut, all at the same time. And then I know it's okay, salt. It's time to do a salt cleanse around the house.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about your ritual practices then. What is a typical ritual for you?
I wake up. I will go to watch the sunrise, which is right outside of my balcony, and I will just sit there for a moment and see if I can spot any wildlife. Very often I can, and I will take that as an augury, like what energy will most likely be coming towards me today. It can be severe warnings as well. For instance, when I had two fighting weasels under my balcony, that was not a good sign.
Wow.
Uh, and I had, well, arguments happen.
Yeah.
But always a good sign, always is boar. I have never
Ah.
had an encounter with boar and not have good luck afterwards. There, I used to be so afraid of them. I was afraid of meeting them. Sometimes I would actually meet them while I'm out hiking, and I just freeze. I cannot I cannot progress. I need to back up. But nothing ever happens. Nothing. And it was only recently that I learned from my neighbor who has a hunting license, like, oh, you really don't have to worry because accidents with them. I never heard of an accident happen here with boar, and he has lived here his whole life. The only accident that happens is when hunters shoot each other.
Yeah. Boar is such a powerful spirit ally and shamanism. I would work with the boar spirit because I think they have a really thick skull, don't they? Which makes them really hard to kill.
And skin.
Yeah.
They're
And their
little.
tusks.
Oh, that's what made me so afraid of them. Like if one charges at me with those tusks,
Yeah,
I'm
you've
gonna
got no chance.
I'm gonna stumble home with my guts hanging in my hand. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a
unfounded.
really good idea, though, is to go into nature before you do your ritual to get the omens from nature.
Yeah, throughout the day, of course. Yeah, there's the food, which is almost a daily ritual. If I know I don't have time, I will forego on that. But yeah, the food is very important. And yeah, runes. I have a tendency of pulling a rune for the day
Mm-hmm.
and throw it, see if it lands upside down or not. And that is a great help because I don't do that for divination. I do that more as what do I need to work on? What do I need to pay attention to? It's not so much what will happen to me, oh gods.
Yeah.
And nothing like that.
Yeah.
Like, really, really, yeah. And,
Yeah.
yeah. In the evening, it is making things. I I have to work with my hands. I have never been an academic. I never will be an academic. I find it very hard to sit down and write out thoughts. So that is my form of meditation is yeah, making things.
Mm-hmm.
And the point is that I do not put energy in the things that I make. If I want to have if I want to make things that have a specific use for me, I will do that later. I will make them first, but I will completely clear my mind and just let my hands do the work. Nothing of the mind comes into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you make runes for other people, don't you? My
Yeah.
sh my teacher, shamanic teacher, he partially taught me. He always said that the person who makes the tools for the shaman is actually the highest shaman because he's manifesting this energy from the other worlds into this, physical object.
I have to be very careful when I work on them because if I'm even the slightest bit in a bad mood, I can't work on them. If I am preoccupied with other things, I can't work on them. I have to be in a very serene and calm state of mind that I know I can be working on this for a couple of hours. I won't be disturbed. Yeah, okay, my cat can make some noise and sometimes he wants food, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if I know I have other things coming up, I can't because I'm preoccupied with that. Oh, I can only work on this for 2 hours and then I have to put them away and then it becomes a stress. And that
Yeah.
stress will enter into them. So that's why sometimes it takes a while because I have a waiting list of people now and I feel a bit sorry because I tell them it takes time.
Yeah. It's exactly the same for me when I'm doing written charts. If I am not, if I'm upset or unhappy or sick or if there's just too much kind of psychic interference or I've been around electronics, it greatly affects my ability to write. And when I write a chart, I want it to be perfect. So when I went through some traumatic stuff last year, I had to postpone writing a lot of my charts because I just couldn't do it. And I didn't want to do, a crappy job of it. You need to be in the zone when it comes to any kind of spiritual work, I think.
Definitely. And it also, for silly things, for instance, I sometimes have people that want to have readings from me. And this happened a while back. Somebody asked me, like, would you do a reading for me? I said, sure, but I'm hungover. I cannot do it. It will be wrong. It will be warped.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot take, I mean, she asked me in confidence, so she trusts me. And I cannot betray the trust by doing by doing a reading while having a hangover, knowing full well that that can invite an entity that may
Yeah.
be for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm exactly the same when it comes to doing readings. It doesn't happen very often, but I have rescheduled readings before if I'm just not feeling it psychically, physically speaking, everything's fine. There's nothing wrong, but if I'm feeling interference on a psychic level, which happens from time to time, then I won't do the reading. I mean, last night I did a ritual with Thor. So if anyone wants to follow me, I run a couple of pages on Telegram, and we're doing collective rituals with Thor, Odin, and Frigga because I think that they're very needed at the minute, especially because of what's going on. So last night it was Thor's turn, and when I do a ritual, I get out the statue that I have of him. But I mean, for anyone, you don't actually need a statue. It's just you can the god needs something to inhabit. It's better that way. When I went to Aphrodite's temple in Cyprus, they actually used a big rock. It was like a big black stone that Aphrodite would inhabit. So my preference is a statue, but you can make your own. You can make it from stone, wood, clay. I'm not very practical, so mine would probably look ridiculous, but it's really just that's not the point. Then I would get mead. If I don't have mead, I mean, I didn't have any yesterday because my friend and I drank it all on my birthday. So I used rum, really good quality rum, and I offered Thor some rum. I offered him some incense, some candlelight. Sometimes I would give him food as well. And I just said, Hail Thor, protector of Midgard, help us to destroy the serpent that has enslaved our people. And then I added some personal stuff. And I would do that for Odin on the 9th, because as you know, that's his number, and Frigga on the full moon. And sometimes I do sporadic rituals. Sometimes you just have that ritual kind of vibe and you feel it in your bones and you have to do something. Those are the best ones, I think, when they're not planned.
Yeah, when they're not planned, they seem to, and it just comes spontaneously. Yeah, I agree. Those seem to be the best ones. They have the most potent energy to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't really explain why that is. But yeah, I do know what you mean. And about the statues, it can be something as simple as, if you cannot find a statue, just write the name down.
Yes.
Or the rune, or the name in runes.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, before before I got statues, I would print off a picture from the internet. You can use that, or if you don't have a printer, you can use a picture on your phone. There's no reason why we can't mix technology with magic now. It does have some good uses.
The phone basically is a black mirror anyway.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, where can people get in touch with you then if they would like runes or readings?
the best one is to contact me, unfortunately, on my Facebook business page, because that is separate from everything else. I don't mind if people add me on my personal Facebook, but please don't send me messages about runes or readings there, because they get buried. Very often don't even check Messenger or Facebook, but I always get a notification from the business page. If you can add me on MeWe or Instagram, and if it's just for readings, fine, you can message me on MeWe or Instagram. But if it's specifically about purchasing rooms, please, please, please go to my business page. That way I will, there's special messenger for it. The business tool, probably know it, and that makes it so much easier for me, because I'm disorganized, especially in technology.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I'm not on Facebook anymore. I haven't been for, I don't know, a year maybe now, I think, or maybe it was just like the start of the year. So if anyone wants to contact me for a reading, I'm also a teacher of astrology. You can go to my website, fionaedgar.com. But I also make daily astrology voice clips on my Telegram channel. If you just search for Fiona Edgar Astrologer or astrology, I can't remember which one it is, on Telegram. I'm also on Instagram, but it's not as juicy, because I don't want to get banned from every platform.
It's owned by the same people anyway. Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not allowed to be you're not allowed to have your own spirituality, if you're white. So, and by the way, everyone listening, that's got nothing to do with racism. It's just simply because it doesn't work for other people. That's the wisdom that we've lost through Abrahamism. There's nothing racist about it. If you want to be I hope all races and people go back to their roots, their ancestral roots, then we can all heal and have a much nicer earth than this demonic sea of like Abrahamism and New Age and atheism.
If every race of people would go back to their ancestral spirituality, we'd have a lot to learn from each other.
Yeah, we would.
Very mutually beneficial for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, is there anything that you would like to say? Anything else?
No, I think we had a good conversation. I don't think I have anything to add for now.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it was lovely to talk to you. So we're going to do another one of these hopefully in a couple of weeks. But that's it, everyone. So just press like and subscribe, and we will be back again soon. Bye.
Bye bye.